The day had started like any other in the lush, verdant world of the late Cretaceous period. The sun rose over a landscape teeming with life, casting its golden rays upon the towering trees, the meandering rivers, and the diverse array of dinosaurs that called this ancient Earth their home. It was a world of giants, of fearsome predators and gentle herbivores, living in a delicate balance maintained over millions of years. But today was not to be like any other day. Without warning, a bright streak tore through the sky, a blazing harbinger of change. It was seen by the sharp eyes of a pterosaur as it soared above the treetops, by the watchful gaze of a pack of velociraptors hunting in the underbrush, and by the long-necked brachiosaurs as they fed on the high leaves of trees. A fiery comet, burning brighter than the midday sun, descended toward the Earth with terrifying speed. The dinosaurs, though accustomed to the dangers of their world, could only watch in confusion and fear as the object crashed into the Earth with a cataclysmic impact. The ground shook as if in the throes of the mightiest earthquake. Trees were uprooted in a vast radius, and a massive cloud of dust and debris rose into the sky, darkening the sun. At the center of this devastation lay a crater, smoldering and ominous, a scar upon the face of the Earth. From the heart of this crater, a strange object was visible, unlike anything the natural world had ever produced. It was a probe, though the dinosaurs could not know this, sent from a distant world by beings of advanced intelligence and technology. The probe lay there, partially buried in the Earth, its surfaces cooling in the morning air, silent and inscrutable. The probe's arrival did not go unnoticed. Creatures great and small, driven by curiosity or drawn by the disturbance, began to converge on the site. Among them, a curious and bold triceratops, drawn by the unusual sight, approached the edge of the crater, peering down at the alien object. As the dust settled and the sun fought to shine through the haze, the probe began its mission. With a series of mechanical whirs and clicks, it activated, extending antennae and sensors to scan its surroundings. It was searching, collecting data, preparing to send a signal back to its creators, marking Earth as ripe for conquest. The probe's actions were a declaration, a beginning of an invasion that would change the course of life on Earth forever. But for now, it stood alone, a silent herald of the coming storm, surrounded by a world of giants oblivious to the fate that had begun to unfold. The arrival of the probe would mark the end of an era for the dinosaurs and the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter in Earth's history. The day had started like any other, but it would end with the world forever changed. In the heart of the smoldering crater, beneath the watchful eyes of Earth's ancient denizens, the alien probe began its awakening. As the early morning light filtered through the dust clouds, casting a surreal glow over the devastated landscape, the probe's systems came online with a purpose that was millennia in the making. This was not merely a machine, but a herald of a civilization that had traversed the dark void between stars, seeking new worlds to subjugate. The probe, a complex amalgamation of metal and technology far beyond Earth's natural laws, hummed to life, its surface starting to shift and reconfigure. Panels opened, revealing intricate sensors designed to analyze the atmosphere, the soil, and the biological signatures that teemed around it. Its mission was clear: assess the viability of Earth for conquest and terraforming. As the probe activated, it sent out a low-frequency pulse, imperceptible to the dinosaurs, but powerful enough to traverse the vastness of space. This signal, a beacon through the cosmic dark, was aimed at the far reaches of the galaxy, towards a fleet awaiting the call to invade. The message was simple, yet ominous. Earth was ripe for the taking. The creatures that had gathered around the crater remained oblivious to the probe's true purpose. The Triceratops, having satisfied its curiosity, moved away, grazing on the ferns that had escaped the destruction. Others, too, lost interest, their instincts pulling them back to the business of survival in a world where every day could bring a new challenge. But the probe was not done. It began to deploy a series of smaller devices, each designed for a specific function. Some burrowed into the ground, analyzing the composition of Earth's crust and the rich deposits of minerals beneath. Others collected samples of the air and water, testing for elements and compounds that would be valuable to the invaders. A few even captured small insects and plants, storing them in sealed chambers for DNA analysis. The data collected was complex, painting a picture of a planet teeming with life and resources, a jewel in the rough darkness of space. Earth was not just a target for conquest, it was a treasure trove of biodiversity and raw materials that the alien empire coveted. As the sun rose higher, casting light on the devastation around the crater, the probe completed its initial survey. It retracted its sensors and sealed its panels, becoming inert once more. But inside, its core processors worked tirelessly, encrypting the data for transmission. The signal once sent would travel for months, crossing the void to reach its intended recipients. The immediate aftermath of the probe's arrival saw a gradual return to normalcy around the crash site. The dinosaurs, those magnificent rulers of Earth, continued their daily struggle for survival, unaware of the shadow that had begun to loom over their world. The balance of life, so carefully maintained over millions of years, was about to be shattered. As the day waned and the creatures of the Cretaceous period resumed their routines, the Earth itself seemed to hold its breath. In the deep places, in the dark corners of the world where no light reached, something had changed. A signal had been sent, a call for invasion, and the response, though yet unheard, was inevitable. The awakening of the probe was the first step in a chain of events that would lead to upheaval and destruction. But for now, the Earth spun on, its inhabitants unaware of the gaze of distant conquerors turning towards them. The stage was set, and the actors, both terrestrial and alien, were moving towards a confrontation that would decide the fate of a world. The Earth beneath the towering ferns and ancient trees still bore the scars of the probe's arrival, a stark reminder of the day the sky had fallen. As the ecosystem around the crater began its slow process of healing, the alien vanguard made its first calculated moves on the unsuspecting stage of Earth. From within the depths of the crater, beneath the cooled exterior of the probe, a series of mechanical sounds heralded the next phase of the invasion. With a precision born of advanced technology, the probe's outer shell split open like a seed pod, revealing its contents to the alien world it aimed to conquer. What emerged were not the monstrous beings of a nightmare, but rather a group of sleek biomechanical scouts, each designed for speed, reconnaissance, and data collection. Their forms were a disconcerting blend of the organic and the artificial, with limbs that moved with unsettling fluidity and sensors that scanned their surroundings with unblinking thoroughness. As the scouts dispersed into the lush prehistoric wilderness, their first encounters with the inhabitants of Earth were marked by curiosity on one side and indifference or mild agitation on the other. A towering diplodocus, disturbed by the buzzing of the scouts as they flew around its long neck, swatted at them with a tail powerful enough to knock down trees. Meanwhile, a pack of velociraptors paused in their hunt to watch the strange creatures with a wary intelligence, their instincts telling them that these new arrivals were different from any prey or predator they had known. The alien scouts were undeterred by these interactions. They collected samples of flora and fauna, capturing insects, analyzing the blood of dinosaurs from minor wounds inflicted with precision lasers, each action feeding data back to the probe. Their primary objective was to understand the dominant life forms, the dinosaurs, assessing their strengths, weaknesses, and potential threats to the invasion force yet to arrive. One scout, more daring than the rest, ventured into a nest of Tyrannosaurus rex eggs, deploying a tiny probe to collect DNA samples. The mother T-Rex, returning to her nest, found the intruder. In a display of primal power, she attacked, her massive jaws closing around the scout. But the encounter was not a total loss for the invaders. The scout managed to transmit vital data on the T-Rex before being crushed, providing the aliens with a detailed analysis of the apex predator's capabilities. These first contacts, while yielding invaluable scientific data, served a secondary purpose as well. The aliens began to test the defensive capabilities of Earth's inhabitants, deploying drones that emitted sounds and lights designed to provoke reactions. A herd of triceratops charged at one such drone, their horns gleaming in the sunlight as they trampled it into the ground, demonstrating their formidable defensive strategies. The aliens' methodical, emotionless study of Earth's life forms was not limited to direct encounters. They monitored weather patterns, volcanic activity, and even the behavior of smaller creatures, building a comprehensive picture of the planet's ecosystem. This data was transmitted back to the waiting fleet, a beacon calling them to a world ripe for conquest. As the sun set on this day of first contact, the alien scouts returned to the probe, their missions complete. The data they had gathered was encrypted and sent through the depths of space, a silent alarm to their distant masters. Earth, with all its wild beauty and untamed power, was unaware of the wheels set in motion, of the eyes that watched from the dark between the stars, and of the storm that was to come. The dinosaurs, rulers of this world for millions of years, continued their existence, under the shadow of an impending doom they could not perceive. The first contact had been made, and the fate of Earth was now caught in the balance, waiting for the response from the stars. The quiet of the pre-dawn light on Earth, a world unspoiled and ancient, was shattered by a spectacle none of its inhabitants could fathom. The sky, a tapestry of stars and the soft glow of the Milky Way, was suddenly streaked with brilliant lights, more numerous than the falling stars of a meteor shower. These were not celestial stones set aflame by the atmosphere, but the vanguard of an alien armada, descending upon the planet with a purpose as cold and unyielding as the void from which they came. The mothership, a colossal structure dwarfing the largest of Earth's dinosaurs, took a stationary position high above the planet, casting a shadow that blotted out the stars. From it, numerous smaller craft began to descend, each targeting different parts of the globe. Their descent was silent, their technology allowing them to slip through the Earth's atmosphere with barely a whisper of sound, a stark contrast to the cacophony of life below. As the first rays of the sun touched the highest peaks and the dense forests, the alien crafts landed. They touched down in environments as varied as the planet itself, from the sweltering humid swamps teeming with massive amphibians and reptiles, to the vast plains where herds of dinosaurs roamed, to the dense forests where the air buzzed with the calls of countless insects. From these crafts emerged the invaders, a species known to themselves as the Vorek. They were bipedal, encased in suits that shimmered with an array of sensors and weapons, a fusion of biology and technology. Their faces, hidden behind visors, betrayed no emotion as they began their methodical conquest of Earth. The initial phase was swift and brutal. The Vorek deployed energy weapons that cut through the flesh and bone of the dinosaurs with terrifying efficiency. The great beasts, for all their might and majesty, were unprepared for such an assault. The Tyrannosaurus rex, the apex predator, fell just as easily as the gentle, plant-eating Diplodocus. The skies, once the domain of the pterosaurs, were now patrolled by alien drones, hunting down anything that moved. But the invasion was not just a slaughter. The Vorek were here to conquer and to claim. They began setting up bases, each a hub of activity from which they launched their operations. These bases were encased in force fields, making them impervious to the attacks of Earth's defenders. Around them, the environment began to change, terraformed by alien technology to suit the needs of the invaders. The air filled with strange particles. The water in the streams began to taste of metal, and the ground sprouted unnatural, alien flora. The dinosaurs, sensing the shift in their world, reacted with fear and confusion. Some fled, driven by instinct to seek safety far from the zones of invasion. Others, driven by desperation, attacked the alien encampments, only to be repelled by the Vorek's superior firepower. A few, curious or oblivious to the danger, wandered into the terraformed zones, only to fall ill and die, poisoned by the alien environment. As the first day of the invasion drew to a close, the Earth was already irrevocably changed. Smoke and fire marked the lands where battles had raged, and the once clear skies were now obscured by the ships of the Vorek. The dinosaurs, rulers of the Earth for millions of years, were now facing an adversary unlike any they had ever known, an adversary that came not from the wilds of their world, but from the depths of space. The Vorek, meanwhile, continued their operations with cold efficiency. Their scouts had provided them with all the information they needed to subjugate this world. Now it was just a matter of executing their plan to perfection. Earth, with all its diverse life and resources, was just another jewel to be added to the crown of their interstellar empire. The invasion had begun, and the fate of Earth's inhabitants hung in the balance. The dinosaurs, for all their size and strength, seemed powerless against the tide of alien technology and aggression. But the planet had its own ways, and life, as it always does, would find a way to endure, to resist, and perhaps to overcome. As the days turned into weeks since the Vorek's arrival, Earth underwent a transformation that would have been unimaginable to its ancient inhabitants. The aliens' technology began to reshape the planet's surface, carving out chunks of the environment to suit their needs, while their weapons ensured that any resistance was swiftly quashed. The once majestic landscapes teeming with life were now marred by the scars of invasion, with the air carrying the acrid scent of destruction. The dinosaurs, symbols of Earth's primal power, found themselves outmatched and displaced. Their numbers dwindled rapidly under the relentless assault of the Vorek. Packs of velociraptors, once fearsome hunters, were reduced to scavenging the edges of alien encampments, wary of drones that patrolled the skies. The mighty Tyrannosaurus rex, isolated and confused, wandered into areas of intense conflict, their roars of defiance ending in beams of light that cut through the pre-dawn haze. In the seas, the great marine reptiles faced a similar fate. Mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, once the unchallenged rulers of the ocean depths, found their waters poisoned by alien effluents, their food sources disappearing as the ecosystem collapsed under the strain of terraforming. The Vorek showed no interest in the Earth's inhabitants beyond their initial studies. To them, the dinosaurs were mere obstacles to be removed, not adversaries to be respected. Their mission was clear: to harvest the planet's resources and integrate it into their vast empire. Anything that stood in the way of that objective was systematically eradicated. But it wasn't just the fauna that suffered. Flora, too, faced the invasive force of the Vorek's terraforming efforts. Forests that had stood for millions of years, providing shelter and sustenance to countless generations of creatures, were burned or uprooted to make way for alien structures and plant life. The air grew thick with the smoke of burning vegetation, while the ground was littered with the ash of a world that was no more. Amidst the widespread devastation, pockets of resistance began to emerge. Small groups of dinosaurs, driven by the basic instincts of survival and protection of their kin, mounted desperate assaults on the alien invaders. A mother triceratops, her young threatened by the encroachment of a terraforming unit, charged with a ferocity that briefly forced the Vorek to retreat. A swarm of Compsognathus, tiny in stature but large in number, harassed an alien survey team, biting and clawing until they were eventually scattered by a sweep of energy fire. These acts of defiance, though valiant, were ultimately futile against the technological might of the Vorek. Each skirmish ended in the retreat or destruction of the Earth's defenders, with the aliens' response growing increasingly severe. Drone patrols were intensified, and any detected gathering of dinosaurs was quickly dispersed with lethal force. As the first phase of the invasion concluded, the Earth was left in a state of shock. The balance of life that had prevailed for eons was shattered, leaving a planet in turmoil. The dinosaurs, once the unchallenged masters of this world, were now endangered, their numbers reduced to a fraction of what they once were. The Vorek had demonstrated their power and their willingness to use it without mercy or restraint. In the shadow of the alien ships, under the watchful eyes of their drones, Earth's remaining inhabitants struggled to survive. The planet had become a battleground, a place of sorrow and loss. But even in the darkest times, hope remained. Life, as it always does, sought a way to endure, to adapt, and to fight back. The resistance, though fractured and beleaguered, was not yet defeated. The story of Earth's defiance was just beginning, and the heart of its struggle beat strongly in the survivors who refused to surrender their home without a fight. In the aftermath of their devastating first strikes, The Vorek began to solidify their control over Earth, reshaping the planet to fit the grim mosaic of their empire. With the dinosaurs' resistance crushed and their numbers dwindling, the invaders turned their attention to the systematic exploitation of Earth's natural resources and the full-scale terraforming of its environment. The planet, once a vibrant tableau of life and natural beauty, was now being forced into a new alien order. Terraforming units, massive structures towering above the landscape, began their work in earnest. Emitting clouds of nanobots and streams of chemicals, they altered the atmosphere, making it more hospitable to the Vorek and toxic to the native life. The sky, once a clear blue canvas painted with clouds, turned to a sickly hue of green and violet, casting a pall over the land. The oceans were not spared. The Vorek introduced engineered microorganisms designed to mine the seas for minerals, disrupting the delicate ecological balance. The once teeming waters turned barren, their colors fading as the life within them perished. The great marine reptiles that had survived the initial onslaught found themselves struggling for survival in waters that were no longer their home. On land, the Vorek's bases expanded, becoming sprawling complexes of metal and energy fields. Around these bases, alien flora began to take root, supplanting the native vegetation with bizarre, otherworldly plants. These plants were not merely different in appearance. They were part of the Vorek's terraforming strategy, producing oxygen variants that supported their physiology while proving noxious to Earth's remaining inhabitants. Despite the widespread devastation, life on Earth proved resilient. Small groups of dinosaurs, adapting to the rapidly changing environment, found ways to survive. In the shadow of the alien structures, among the strange new flora, these creatures eked out a meager existence, always hiding, always on the move to avoid the Vorek's patrols. Among the survivors, a notable evolution occurred. Some dinosaurs began to show signs of accelerated adaptation, possibly spurred by the alien influence on their ecosystem. A species of small theropod developed a thicker hide, more resistant to the altered atmosphere. In another case, a herd of hadrosaurs displayed an increased intelligence, utilizing complex strategies to evade drones and gather food. Humanity's ancient ancestors, small mammals living in the margins of a dinosaur-dominated world, found the new order both a curse and a blessing. The decline of the dinosaurs opened new ecological niches for them, though the Vorek's terraforming efforts posed a significant threat. These early mammals began to thrive in underground burrows, avoiding the toxic air and finding new food sources amid the chaos. As the Vorek continued their transformation of Earth, a semblance of stability emerged. The aliens had created a new world order, one where their technology and biology dominated, and Earth's native life was forced into the fringes. However, this stability was deceptive. Beneath the surface, resistance was growing. The survivors, both dinosaur and mammal, were learning, adapting, and, in some cases, evolving in response to the alien presence. This resistance was not yet organized, its acts sporadic and isolated, but it was a sign that Earth would not be subdued so easily. The Vorek had imposed a new order on the planet, but they had not yet quenched the spirit of its inhabitants. The struggle for Earth was entering a new phase, one where the lines between conqueror and conquered, alien and native, were beginning to blur. The battle for survival had forged unlikely alliances and sparked a flame of defiance that, given time, could grow into a conflagration capable of challenging the invaders. The story of Earth's resistance was just beginning, a tale of resilience, adaptation, and the indomitable will to endure. In the shadow of the Vorek's dominion over Earth, a flicker of rebellion began to grow into a flame. Among the scattered survivors of the dinosaur populations, whispers of resistance turned into roars of defiance. Leading this unlikely insurrection was a velociraptor named Ska, whose intelligence and adaptability had always set her apart from her peers. Ska had witnessed the decimation of her kind and had survived through cunning and an unparalleled will to live. She had observed the invaders, learned their patterns, and now sought to unite the remnants of Earth's inhabitants against their common enemy. Ska's journey began in the dense forests that had somehow escaped the full brunt of the Vorex terraforming. Here she encountered other survivors, dinosaurs that had evaded capture or destruction, each with their own tale of loss and resilience. She spoke to them not of survival, but of reclaiming their world. Her words, filled with a fervor born of grief and anger, ignited a spark in the hearts of those who heard her. Among those drawn to Ska's cause were a pair of triceratops, battered and scarred from their encounters with the Vorex, but unbroken in spirit. There was also a small herd of hadrosaurs, whose intelligence had grown in response to the challenges of living in a world no longer their own. They brought with them knowledge of the land and the ability to communicate silently through subtle body language, invaluable skills for a budding rebellion. Ska's plan was audacious. She proposed a series of hit-and-run attacks on the Vorex installations, aiming to disrupt their operations and weaken their grip on the planet. The first target was a terraforming unit on the edge of what had once been a lush valley, now a barren wasteland. The unit was heavily guarded, surrounded by drones and patrolled by Vorex soldiers, but Ska had observed a weakness in their patrols, a brief window when the defenses were at their lowest. The attack was launched at dusk when the shifting colors of the sky masked their approach. The Triceratops, with their imposing size and strength, led the charge, crashing into the drones that hovered too close. The hadrosaurs, nimble and quick, slipped past the outer defenses, using their knowledge of the terrain to avoid detection. Ska and a handful of other raptors targeted the terraforming unit itself, their claws and teeth no match for the Vorex technology, but their determination boundless. The assault was swift, chaotic, and fueled by desperation. They managed to inflict damage on the terraforming unit, disrupting its operations temporarily and sowing confusion among the Vorex soldiers. It was a minor victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. The rebels retreated into the night, leaving behind a message carved into the alien metal of the unit: Earth will not yield. The repercussions of their actions were swift and merciless. The Vorex launched retaliatory strikes on areas they suspected harbored the rebels, demonstrating their willingness to obliterate any threat to their control. But the damage had been done. The myth of the Vorex invincibility had been shattered, giving rise to hope among the oppressed inhabitants of Earth. News of the attack spread like wildfire, carried by the survivors and whispered among the ranks of the downtrodden. Ska's rebellion had begun in earnest, a beacon of resistance in a world darkened by conquest. The Vorex had brought about a new order, but they had also unwittingly united their victims in a common cause. As the rebellion grew, so too did the resolve of its participants. Dinosaurs that had once fled at the sight of a Vorex drone now stood their ground, ready to fight for their home. The battle for Earth was far from over, but the seeds of resistance had been sown, nurtured by the courage of a few who dared to dream of freedom. Ska and her allies had shown that even in the darkest of times, hope could thrive, and from the ashes of defeat, a new force could rise to challenge the invaders. The fight for Earth's future had begun. The rebellion, ignited by Ska and her band of resolute dinosaurs, began to gather momentum as more of Earth's ancient inhabitants joined the cause. Emboldened by their initial victory, the rebels started to organize more daring raids against the Vorex installations. Each successful attack fed the growing belief that the invaders could be defeated, that Earth could be reclaimed. But Ska knew that for their resistance to have any lasting impact, they needed to strike a decisive blow. The opportunity for such a strike presented itself in the form of the Vorex main terraforming station. The station, a towering edifice of alien technology, was the heart of the Vorex efforts to reshape Earth. It was heavily fortified, surrounded by energy shields, and patrolled by the most formidable of the Vorex drones. A direct assault would be suicide, but Ska had learned much about the enemy. She had observed a pattern in the station's energy consumption, a brief period when its shields were at their weakest as it cycled through power phases. That vulnerability, slight as it was, presented a window for attack. Moreover, Ska and her allies had discovered a crucial piece of intelligence. The terraforming station's reliance on a vast underground reservoir of water used in its atmospheric processing. If they could find a way to disrupt this supply, they could potentially cripple the station, halting the Vorex terraforming efforts and delivering a significant blow to their operations on Earth. The plan was audacious and fraught with danger. It required precision timing and coordination among all the rebel forces, qualities that Ska had been fostering among her diverse band of dinosaurs. The Triceratops would lead a feint attack, drawing the attention of the Vorex drones, while the raptors, including Ska, infiltrated the lower levels of the station to reach the water reservoir. On the night chosen for the attack, the rebels moved into position under the cover of darkness. The air was electric with tension, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. As the Triceratops charged, their roars echoing through the night, the Vorex drones swarmed to meet them, just as Ska had predicted. Meanwhile, Ska and her team of raptors navigated the treacherous terrain around the terraforming station, avoiding patrols and slipping past sensors. Their knowledge of the land, coupled with the intelligence gathered by the hadrosaurs, guided them to a concealed entrance, one overlooked by the Vorex surveillance. Inside the station, the team encountered the alien architecture of the Vorek, a maze of corridors and chambers pulsing with energy. Guided by the faint vibrations of the water reservoir below, they pressed on, until they reached the control chamber. Here, the heart of the station thrummed with power, a power they sought to turn against the invaders. Using improvised tools and the sheer force of their will, Ska and her team sabotaged the station's control systems, redirecting the flow of water away from the processors. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Vorek. The station, starved of its essential resource, began to shut down, its energy shields flickering and failing. As the rebels made their escape, the station erupted into chaos, alarms blaring and drones scrambling to contain the damage. But it was too late. The main terraforming station, the symbol of the Vorex dominion over Earth, had been crippled by the very creatures they sought to subdue. The news of the station's fall spread like wildfire among the remnants of Earth's inhabitants, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Ska and her allies had achieved the impossible, striking a blow that would change the course of the conflict. The Vorek, for the first time, seemed vulnerable, their grip on the planet loosened by the courage and cunning of Earth's defenders. The turn of the tide had come, not just in the battle for control of the planet, but in the hearts of its inhabitants. Earth was not yet free, but the path to liberation had been illuminated by the daring of its ancient guardians. The rebellion, once a desperate struggle for survival, was now a burgeoning war for the soul of a world. The destruction of the main terraforming station marked a pivotal moment in the struggle for Earth. The Vorek, rattled by the audacity and effectiveness of the rebellion, initiated a counteroffensive designed to crush the insurgent dinosaurs once and for all. But Earth's defenders, emboldened by their recent victory, were not about to let their momentum wane. Ska, the heart of the resistance, understood that this would be the turning point. They could either cement their stand here or see their hopes for liberation extinguished. Under her leadership, a grand alliance of Earth's remaining dinosaurs was forged. This alliance was unprecedented, a testament to the desperation and determination of the planet's native inhabitants. Ska's strategy was clear: to launch a coordinated assault on the Vorek's remaining strongholds, targeting their supply lines and communication networks, aiming to isolate their forces and whittle them down in a series of calculated strikes. The final battle would take place around the largest of these strongholds, a fortress that served as the command center for the Vorek's operations on Earth. Guarded by the most advanced of the alien technologies and heavily fortified, it represented a formidable challenge. But the rebels had something the Vorek did not: intimate knowledge of the land and an unbreakable will to fight for their home. As dawn broke on the day of the final battle, the air was thick with tension. Ska led a force of raptors in a stealth approach towards the stronghold's eastern flank, while the Triceratops and other heavy hitters prepared to charge the main gates. The hadrosaurs and other smaller, agile dinosaurs were tasked with sabotage, slipping through enemy lines to create chaos and disarray. The initial assault was a cacophony of roars, screeches, and the clash of flesh against metal. The Triceratops, armored titans of the ancient world, rammed into the Vorax barriers with the force of living battering rams. Their charge was followed by the raptors, who leaped into the fray with claws bared, targeting the Vorax soldiers with precision strikes aimed at their weak points. Meanwhile, the hadrosaurs and their cohorts wreaked havoc on the stronghold's defenses, using their knowledge of the terrain to move undetected. They sabotaged energy conduits and supply caches, sowing confusion among the Vorax forces and disrupting their ability to coordinate a defense. The Vorax, for all their technological superiority, were taken aback by the ferocity and cunning of the assault. Their drones swarmed the skies, firing energy weapons into the masses of attackers, but the dinosaurs' momentum was relentless. For every drone that struck a target, another was torn from the sky by a leaping raptor or crushed under the stampeding feet of a triceratops. The battle raged throughout the day, a brutal testament to the resolve of Earth's defenders. The turning point came when Ska, leading a squad of raptors, managed to breach the inner sanctum of the stronghold. There they found the central command hub, a nexus of alien technology that coordinated the Vorax operations across the planet. With a combination of raw strength and cunning, Ska and her allies destroyed the command hub, sending cascading failures throughout the Vorax network. Without their command and control, the alien forces were thrown into disarray, unable to mount a coordinated defense against the relentless onslaught of the dinosaurs. As the stronghold fell, the message was clear: Earth would not be conquered so easily. The victory was not just a military triumph, but a symbol of the planet's indomitable spirit. The Vorax, faced with the unexpected ferocity and resilience of Earth's inhabitants, began to withdraw, their objectives unmet, their forces decimated. The final battle was over, but its consequences would echo through the ages. Earth had been scarred by the conflict, its landscapes altered, its ecosystems disrupted. But life, as it always does, would find a way to flourish again. The dinosaurs, the champions of this ancient world, had secured their place in its history, not just as victims of an invasion, but as valiant defenders of their home. In the aftermath, as the dust settled and the sounds of battle faded, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The Vorax had been repelled, but at great cost. The planet would need time to heal, to restore the balance that had been so violently upended. But for now, Earth remained under the stewardship of its native inhabitants, a testament to their courage, unity, and the enduring will to survive. In the wake of the final battle, Earth lay quiet, its landscapes forever altered by the conflict between the native dinosaurs and the alien invaders. The Vorax, having retreated, left behind a planet scarred by terraforming and warfare, but also a world that had demonstrated an unparalleled capacity for resistance. The dinosaurs, once on the brink of annihilation, now faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives in the aftermath of the invasion. Ska, the velociraptor who had risen to become the emblem of the rebellion, stood on the remnants of the Vorax stronghold, gazing out at the horizon. The air was filled with a mix of desolation and hope. The victory had been costly, with many lives lost and ecosystems disrupted, yet it offered a chance for a new beginning. The dinosaurs had not only defended their home, but had also proven their resilience and adaptability in the face of an unimaginable threat. The immediate challenge was survival. The Vorax terraforming efforts had transformed large swaths of the planet, introducing alien flora that threatened the native vegetation. Water sources had been polluted, and the climate altered in ways that would take time to understand and adapt to. Yet, the dinosaurs, led by Ska and the other leaders of the rebellion, set about the task of healing their world with determination. Groups of herbivores, including the hadrosaurs and the resilient triceratops, began the slow process of reseeding the land, spreading the spores and seeds of Earth's native plants to reclaim the ground from the alien species. Predators, too, found their place in this new ecosystem, maintaining the balance of life in a world that was once again theirs to roam. The Vorax abandoned technologies, mysterious and advanced beyond anything the inhabitants of Earth had known, posed both a temptation and a threat. Some among the dinosaurs, curious and intelligent, approached these remnants with caution, seeking to understand. Under Ska's guidance, they chose to leave the alien technology untouched, a decision born from the wisdom that their strength lay not in the tools of their enemies, but in the unity and resilience of their kind. As seasons changed, the scars of the invasion began to heal. Forests slowly reclaimed the land, and the rivers ran clear once more. The dinosaurs, adapting to the changes in their world, thrived. New generations were born, growing up with tales of the great conflict, of the courage of their ancestors, and of Ska, the raptor who had led them through the darkness. The legacy of the Vorek invasion lingered, not just in the physical changes to the planet, but in the collective memory of its inhabitants. It served as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of defending one's home against all odds. But it also stood as a testament to the power of unity in the face of adversity and the indomitable spirit of Earth's children. As the years passed, the story of the rebellion and the final battle became legend, a tale of heroism and sacrifice that would be told for generations. The dinosaurs, once mere inhabitants of Earth, had become its guardians, ready to face any future threats with the same bravery and determination. Ska's legacy, and that of all who had fought in the rebellion, lived on in the thriving ecosystems of Earth and in the hearts of its inhabitants. Their world had been forever changed, but in the crucible of conflict, they had found a new beginning, a new balance, and a renewed promise for the future. The Earth continued to spin, a vibrant testament to life's resilience, a world reborn from the ashes of invasion, guarded by the descendants of those who had fought for its freedom. In the grand tapestry of the cosmos, it remained a beacon of hope, a symbol of what can be achieved when life itself rises to defend its home.